Hello everyone, and welcome to another case of video. Today's video is going to be a bit of a rough one for myself because of the relationship between the victim and the attacker slash perpetrator in this case. It's very disgusting, and honestly, it could have been easily avoided, in my opinion. So without further ado, let's get into today's case. This is the case of Emani Moss. Emani Gabrielle Moss was born on the 23rd of April, 2003. Not long after giving birth, Emani's mother, who was addicted to drugs at the time, gave up her parental rights, leaving Emani in the hands of her father, Eman Moss. She was one of 5 children, all of which were given up by their mother. In 2004, there was an incident between Eman Moss and Emani's mother. He was convicted of battery for abusing her in front of Emani. But for a majority of Emani's life, she was raised by her father. They would often do things together, like go on walks and just have a good time. And one of the things they loved to do together was go to church, actually. And that is where Eman would meet his future wife, Tiffany. Tiffany worked as a preschool teacher at the church, and the two would quickly fall in love. The couple got married in 2009, and Tiffany would go on to give birth to 2 children, 1 boy and 1 girl. It was seen that the family was complete, but not quite. Sometime between 2009 and 2010, Tiffany would become violent with Emani for trivial things such as homework not being finished or dishes not being washed. When Emani was 6 years old, she told the school nurse that she was afraid to go home with a bad report card, fearing that her parents would hurt her. She then went on to say that her stepmother Tiffany would hit her with curtain rods. The nurse would go on to examine Emani and found multiple scabs and bruises, as well as other marks covering her body. Emani was then taken to the police station, and Tiffany was arrested on first-degree child cruelty charges. She admitted to striking Emani on 3 separate occasions for simply failing to do her homework. Tiffany pled guilty and was given 5 years probation as a part of Georgia's first-time offenders program. After completing parenting classes, the case was dismissed. After Tiffany's March 2010 arrest, she began to abuse Emani even more. It's safe to say that she had it out for Emani, considering that the charges brought against her caused her to lose her job as a preschool teacher. It wasn't stated anywhere that Tiffany was abusive towards her biological children, but it was stated that she was indeed abusing Emani at this time. Emani was sent to live with her grandmother Robin for 6 months, and at the end of it, Robin fought to retain custody of Emani but was dismissed. After leaving her grandmother's custody, Emani would continue to be beaten and neglected over the course of several years. In 2012, Emani ran away from home twice. The first time, she told an apartment officer that she had ran away because her stepmother tied her up with a belt and put her in a cold shower. The police were called, and Tiffany was spoken to about the allegations. She completely denied everything, saying that Emani was a complete liar and that she could not, under any circumstances, be trusted. After finding no evidence, Emani was handed back over to the Moss family. The second time she ran away, she was found sleeping in bushes outside of an apartment complex by a police officer. She said that Tiffany was being mean to her. This led the officer to make a report about the event, as well as file, get this, curfew and runaway violation charges against Emani, so that she would have to actually see a juvenile court judge. I don't know if this was done in some half-ass attempt to offer help to Emani, or if he just saw her as a troublesome runaway child. But it kind of left me speechless to read that, and I couldn't really figure out how to take it. So I'll let you guys make a decision on that one. Let's move on. During the period of 2011 through 2013, the Moss family moved around a lot, living off of the kindness of others, so to speak. At this time, Iman was the only one working. He worked long hours and barely got to see any of his children, including Emani. Iman would later say at trial that the only unusual thing he saw about Imani was that she would eat a lot more than usual. Eventually, the Moss family would secure a place of their own, and for the first time in a long time, things were actually starting to look up for them. However, Imani was not able to see her extended family very often. So when she got the chance to see her aunt Sharonice and her grandmother Robin, she was a little bit more than excited, I would say. However, that excitement quickly turned into fear when Robin and Sharonice got a good look at Imani. They saw that Imani's beautiful long hair had been cut and that she was uncomfortably thin. Robin confronted Tiffany about the findings, and Tiffany's response was just that, if you act ugly, you should look ugly. Imani was said to be acting more timid than usual, especially when Tiffany was around. Now remember, as we go through this case, this is the same lady that they allowed to teach preschoolers. After the end of the 2012-2013 school year, Tiffany and Iman decided to take Imani out of public school and would be homeschooling her going forward. Knowing of the abuse against Imani, her aunt Sharonice asked GDFCS to intervene, but they declined to do so. On the 6th of August 2013, GDFCS received a tip that Imani was being severely neglected by her father and her stepmother. In Robin's lawsuit against the GDFCS, it stated that despite multiple reports, nothing was really done to check in on Imani. No visits, no follow-ups, nothing. And the excuse that, I don't want to say excuse because it sounds really harsh, but the reasoning that they gave was that they just simply couldn't find a fixed address for the Moss family. And get this, that no current maltreatment against Imani was taking place to even be investigated to begin with. Okay, I guess. But sadly, unbeknownst to Robin and the rest of Imani's extended family, Mother's Day would be the last day that they saw their beloved Emani alive. During the late summer of 2013, the Moss family would move again. They moved to an apartment in Lawrenceville, Georgia, and this was for all intents and purposes when Imani vanished from the face of the earth. Iman took on a second job to support the family, leaving Imani in the hands of her stepmother, Tiffany. He would leave very early in the morning for his first job, come back to the house for a quick break before going to his second job and returning home around 11 p.m. As I stated earlier, Tiffany had no job at this point and was staying home with the kids 24/7 pretty much. But she would start to do something very peculiar around this time. And that is, she would start to actually starve Imani. This torture would last for several weeks. The neighbors said that they would see the other two children playing around, and they had no idea that they even had a big sister to begin with. Which tells me that Imani never left the house once in the entire time that they had been living in that apartment. Imani was so starved, she was so thirsty that she could not physically get up and leave the house. She couldn't even leave the room. In fact, Imani was so weak from starvation that she couldn't even leave her bed. Tiffany starved her so badly that she was confined to her bed. It had become a makeshift prison for her. With Emani being in such a weakened state, she couldn't even get up to use the bathroom, meaning that she would have to defecate and urinate in the same bed to which she was confined to. I want it to be known that at the time of this torture, Tiffany's biological children were well fed. She would send pictures of the meals that she had prepared that evening to Iman while he was at work, and she would even ask him to pick up foods such as cookie dough and cake mix so that she can make treats for the family as well, for everyone except Emani. Emani would have most likely been able to smell these meals as well as the cookies while she lay there in bed dying, knowing that she would never get to taste them. On the 24th of October, Emani had her first seizure. When Iman came home from work, Tiffany began telling him that there was something wrong with Emani. Emani was found unresponsive in the bathtub, shaking violently with her eyes moving side to side very rapidly. Iman removed Emani from the bathtub and placed her in her bed, where instead of calling an ambulance, like you and I might, she would be stuck laying there for the next few days, still alive and still suffering. Sadly, we've come to the end of part 1 in this case, and I really want to hear what you guys think of the case so far. I mean, obviously, I have my opinions sprinkled throughout the entire video, but I'm really interested in seeing what you guys think. I also have a mini question that I want to ask you guys, and you guys can feel free to comment on it in the comment section below. That question that I have is, what do you guys feel the role of a step-parent is in the life of a stepchild? Also, how do you feel about step-parents being disciplinarians to their stepchildren? Let me know in the comments below, and please join me next week for part 2 in the case of Emani Moss. Love you guys. Bye.